Indian Lake, PA, where I'm fortunate to be spending the Labor Day weekend. If you know Indian Lake, you know it's a piece of heaven. And so my family and I have gathered up here for the weekend. I was trying to get my 8-year-old granddaughter, Stella, to join me on the program and talk a little bit about herself. And she politely said, "No, I am not doing that, Noni. You're on your own." So it is Labor Day. And I don't have to tell you that labor is always under pressure and always has to fight for itself. And this year, 2025, is no different. It is a constant struggle for labor to maintain its rights and a fair day of work and a fair wage for that day of work. I thought it would be instructive today to talk a little bit about the history of labor in the United States. And there are a few heroes and heroines that I admire and have followed and read about over the years. And so I'd like to share those with you. I'm going to give you some references to books that have been written on these subjects, and I welcome you to consider reading them. They're instructive, and they give you a wonderful feeling about men and women who have fought for justice. And the qualities that I think permeate all of our heroes and heroines, there are many, but the three that I think stand out are resilience, the ability to face a hurdle and overcome it, and then face another hurdle and overcome it. Courage, the character, the trait that just some people have this innate ability to just not be afraid of adversity, to push through adversity and high odds, strong odds against them, and not be afraid of the consequences. And as you read about heroes and heroines in American labor history, you can see that they suffered consequences, beaten, jailed, thrown out of their jobs, thrown out of their homes, and yet they had this innate strength to keep going. And that plays into the third trait that I think applies to all of them, and that's perseverance. Perseverance, to me, is best described by Winston Churchill with his famous phrase, "Never give up. Never, never give up." And if you've read about World War II and you've read about Winston Churchill, you can appreciate that quality of just, no matter what, continuing the fight. I've often said to my sons and the many wonderful staff and attorneys we have at Quatrini Law Group that you have to play the long game. You have to be willing to have perseverance, to have courage, to have resilience. These are the qualities that all of us would wonderfully want to possess and instill in our children and our grandchildren, because that's the backbone of a strong society, a democratic society that recognizes rights, that looks for justice between labor and owner of a business. And these individuals that I'm going to talk about, again, they have all of these qualities. They lived them, and they were resilient. They were courageous, and they did have perseverance. Mother Jones, Mary Harris Jones, John Mitchell with the United Mine Workers, Frances Perkins, a woman of incredible distinction, Cesar Chavez, just to name four that we're going to talk about in a little bit of detail. But let me give you a list of some others. If you're just joining, this is Vince Quatrini from the Quatrini Law Group. Today we're going to talk about labor because that's what we do every day, is represent injured workers, disabled individuals who have been laboring and have faced adversity and or involved in an awful accident at work. As you know, the horrendous Clairton steel plant explosion of a few weeks ago. We're representing a couple of the unfortunate families that have to now live with that tragic experience in our law firm. So, okay, let's go back and start with Mary Harris. Her nickname was Mother Jones, and this is around 1903. Mary Harris Jones lost her husband and her 4 children to yellow fever. Imagine that. And she found her calling in helping others to get through her tragedy of losing her entire family. She became an organizer for the United Mine Workers and what was known as the Knights of Labor. And back then, if you know, child labor was rampant. The brickbat boys in the coal mines, 6 years old, sitting on a pile of coal, picking through the coal for what's good and what's not. Well, she organized an army of children and their parents the parents worked in the mills. And she began a 3-week march. Think about this in 1900 when transportation was horse and buggy maybe at best, and the car was just coming into being. But the 3-week, 125-mile walk from Kensington, Philadelphia, to the president, Teddy Roosevelt was president then, to his summer home in Oyster Bay, Long Island. They held rallies along the way at different places and locations, and the cause célèbre of Mary Harris, Mother Jones, was eradicating child labor and raising the consciousness of America to the awfulness of having children working in dangerous occupations. And so they got to Teddy Roosevelt's place, but were turned away, never got a chance to face him directly, but her message was heard. Eventually, because of her efforts and many others, legislation was passed to end child labor. I just pause to cringe at some of the articles I've read recently that states are looking to pass laws to allow young people to go back and work in these jobs, that are dangerous, that where children should never be. I can't even imagine that after what we've come through in America and and what we've achieved in fairness, that anybody anywhere would even consider something like that. So there's that was her. Just one of her many things. Mother Jones got involved in the United Mine Workers anthracite strike. I'll talk a little bit about that with John Mitchell. Back in 1900, there was a 6-week march. In March 2000, women. 2,000 women, 2,000 women went on a 6-week march to aid the United Mine Workers and the strike in anthracite coal, which I was talking about. Mother Jones was part of that. If you're just tuning in, this is Vince Quatrini from the law firm of Quatrini Law Group, with offices in Uniontown and Somerset and Pittsburgh. We're moving into our new office, by the way. If any of you ever had dinner at the Italian restaurant Lydia's in the Strip District in Pittsburgh, well, stop by come October. It'll be the new home of Quatrini Law Group. We've renovated the building, and we're moving into it, so we have more space to accommodate our growing practice in the western Pennsylvania area. And just as another side note, if you know the Italian restaurant Dianoia's in Pittsburgh, which, by the way, is wonderful, if no matter what nationality you are, if you love Italian food, you'll love Dianoia's. Well, Lydia had a huge kitchen attached to her restaurant, of course, to do the cooking. So we are keeping the kitchen, and we are leasing it out to Dianoia, who's going to do all of their catering out of the kitchen. So the joke amongst us is that if we get hungry at lunchtime, we'll just walk next door to the kitchen and get our pizza and meatballs. So back to where I was with labor. By the way, we have the most distinguished labor attorney in Pennsylvania, maybe across the nation. My colleague, Ernie Orsatti, he and I went to law school many decades ago, and he's become one of the premier defenders of union rights and labor rights. We represent 17 unions across western Pennsylvania, and we're always in the midst of filing agreements, arbitrating agreements, appealing agreements, and Ernie's the best. But so we've brought labor law into our practice because it's just such an important part of what we do. My claim to fame, by the way, is that when I was in college, I needed a summer job, and I began working at Latrobe Steel Company. It was a wonderful local steel company owned by the Saxman family, and my dad got me a job there for the summer, so I became a member of the United Steelworkers, which I'm proud. And the fun fact for me was that I got to join the credit union. And so I had an ability at a very young age to be able to borrow a little bit of money because I belonged to a credit union, which, to digress again, credit unions are one of the strong institutions in America for individuals who may not be able to get credit from a bank, especially when that credit union's tied to your labor union, like at Latrobe Steel, they give you an opportunity to borrow money when you need it. So, okay, and then, I'm going to keep going. Casey Seaman, young lady who just joined our firm. She's got labor in her blood. Her dad has been a member of Teamsters 249 forever, and Casey grew up going to labor parades. In fact, that's where she is today, now that I think of it. She's in the Pittsburgh Labor Parade, walking alongside all of the laborers, all of the union members, the mayor of Pittsburgh. So that's who we are. I mean, we walk the talk and do what it takes to defend labor against injustice. So let me go over now and talk a little bit about John Mitchell. And I told you about books that I wanted you to consider reading. Well, the one that I'm reading right now is called Hour of Fate, H-O-U-R, like on the clock. Hour of Fate, and it's the history of the interchange, the competition, the tension between Teddy Roosevelt when he was president, as I said, at the turn of the century, 1900, and J.P. Morgan, the richest man in America, the financier, and it's just an intriguing book, and how we evolved in the struggle between the tension between labor and employer. And there's so many side stories in this book, Hour of Fate, that you would really enjoy. One of them is about John Mitchell. He entered the mines at the age of 12. Talk about child labor, right? His father was crushed to death by a team of runaway horses in the mines. So here he is at the age of 12 trying to support his family. In 1894, there was a strike, the UMW, 120,000 miners, and Mitchell was just coming up in the ranks. He worked his way up from secretary-treasurer with no salary, and I believe it was 1899 he became president of the United Mine Workers. So in the midst of all this, you have the anthracite coal strike in Pennsylvania because of the awful conditions in those mines. It's actually hard to believe that anybody that owned a company, especially a coal mine, if you in Fayette County and Uniontown and all the areas around you, you know what it's like to go down in a coal mine. It's one of the most dangerous occupations. I've always bemoaned the fact that when individuals in some professions are killed in the course of duty, and I don't begrudge it, there's a lot to be done and said and praised for those individuals. But when somebody's killed in a coal mine, nobody notices. It really makes me crazy. It is just as honorable a profession and a job, and more dangerous than most all professions. So the anthracite strike was a pushback against the coal owners. You know, they made you pay for the dynamite that you used for them in the coal mines. You had to buy all your goods from the company store, which you probably know, and rent in the company house. So to get paid, they'd weigh the coal that you produced for the day, right? They would cheat. They would actually cheat you, the coal miner, on how much coal you had produced. And your wages for working in this coal mine were tied to the price of coal. Are you kidding me? if the coal price goes down, you're going to reduce the wage of the person that's producing it, who has no control over the price of coal. Well, they walked out. Long strike, ugly strike. But they would not give up. And John Mitchell was in the fray. And it was him versus the coal bosses. And George Baer, who was the owner of the Reading Railroad Company, he was apparently a rather, if I may, rather obnoxious individual. Here's what he said in the middle of this fight. He felt that he had the divine right to dictate what the rights were. So he says, the rights and interests of the laboring man will be protected and cared for, not by labor agitators, but by the Christian men to whom God, in his infinite wisdom, has given the control of the property interests of the country. Wow. And so with that kind of mentality, you can imagine what this struggle was like. Finally, Roosevelt himself stuck his nose in it enough to get both parties to create a commission, and they went back to work just in time. But here's what I love as a side part of this story and this experience. Other unions across the country chipped in, gave money to these workers so that they could survive without any income. Those were the days when you had not only the strikers, but people from other industries who walked off the job in support of that union that was trying to get its rights. Boy, I wish those days could come back. I wish that workers were able to help each other through these crises. You could turn the tide quickly if labor and the company knew that you had the financial wherewithal to sustain. So at the end of that commission, some justice prevailed. Coal miners received a 10% increase in wages and a 10% decrease in the amount of hours they had to work each week. This is Vince Quatrini continuing to talk to you about labor heroes and heroines in America. Another book I want to commend to you is I'll Meet You in Hell. It's the fascinating interaction of Andrew Carnegie and Henry Clay Frick. They were business partners who despised each other at the end of their lives, and Carnegie wanted to make up as they were both, I believe he was passing away. He sent a note to Henry Clay Frick wanting to make amends. Henry Clay Frick wrote a note back to him and said, "I'll see you in hell." Another major heroine for me is Frances Perkins. I only have a few more minutes with you here. And this is a lady who is just fascinating. And there's another book for you to read. The Roosevelt I Knew. This is Franklin Roosevelt. She was born in 1880. Her dad wanted her, she was a woman. Her dad said, "You have to be a teacher." Well, she wasn't going to stand for that. Not that, of course, teaching is a wonderful profession. She moved to Philly. She started assisting immigrants. She'd go to the boat. When the boat got there, she'd be there to help them get off the boat and be safe so that they weren't swayed by people trying to take advantage of them upon arriving in America. She moved to New York. She got her master's degree at Columbia. On March 25th, 1911, she was eating lunch when the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire broke out, one of the most tragic accidents in America. 146 young women killed, many of them jumping from the 9th floor to their death as the building burned. So I'm going to shortcut this. He became part of the Al Smith regime in New York in his industrial commission, but when Franklin was elected president, he brought her to D.C. She was the first woman cabinet member in America. Think about that. And she was the first woman Secretary of Labor. She was instrumental in creating the New Deal legislation and the Social Security Act. And in my world, she was instrumental in the New York Workers' Compensation Act, which then spilled over to Pennsylvania, and we passed our first Workers' Compensation Act in 1915, 4 years after the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. So, Vince Quatrini here. I think my time is coming to an end. I'm sure that I'll be told when that's the case shortly here. I said it's a fun day for me to be able to come to you from Indian Lake, PA, where I'm with my family, and discussing labor in America, part of our DNA at our law firm, Quatrini Law Group, where we help protect rights every day. There's a few more names before we close that I would commend to you to read in the labor movement. Philip Randolph. This gentleman was instrumental in creating the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, which was a monumental task at the time to fight against the railroads, which were the strongest force in America. Of course, Samuel Gompers with labor. Hattie Canty, C-A-N-T-Y. She was the first black woman president of the Las Vegas Hotel Workers Union back in 1990. Eugene Debs, which may be known for controversial reasons, read about him. His book he wrote about himself is Walls, Just Like the Wall in Your House, and Bars. And he was instrumental with Social Security and Medicare. He was president of the American Railway Union. These are people, again, who had those qualities that I talked about. The resilience, courage, and perseverance, never giving up. And John Lewis, president of UMW, and Lucy Pargons, P-A-R-G-O-N-S, who created May Day and was instrumental in the 8-hour workday. So we covered a lot of territory this morning, and I hope you'll leave with the proud thought that labor, the men and the women who labor every day, who make things, who fix things, who create things, are the force that makes America the place that you want to be proud of, and because of the people who make you proud of it by going to work every day and just doing what needs to be done for all of us. This is Vince Quatrini. I've had the pleasure of spending an entire career representing laborers, men and women who toil every day for us throughout Fayette County, western Pennsylvania. I participate in a national group. I'm going to Florida next month to my national workers' compensation group. I've been part of that for 30 years. So I think it's time to close off here. I didn't get a message yet, so maybe I'll keep talking for a couple moments.
You got about 3 minutes, Vince.
All righty, I'll watch the clock here. So let me just go back and talk a little bit more about Francis Perkins. When you read the book, The Roosevelt I Knew, again, you have this just powerful, positive image of Franklin Roosevelt. But she is truly the woman behind the man who made it happen. Roosevelt did not like her when he first met her. He thought she was a spoiled brat. And she, through the force of her character and personality, was able to demonstrate to him that, she knew what needed to be done and how to do it. And think about Social Security, disability, and retirement. I always marvel at how in that period of time when they were coming out in the middle of the Depression, that people had the foresight and the creativity to design a legislation that was a safety net for all of us, not only at retirement, but the Social Security disability provision in the Act. That's what we do every day, all day. We represent people who obtain Social Security disability when they have muscular dystrophy, or they had 3 heart attacks, or they're 56 years old and they blew out their right shoulder or their low back. But the wisdom to have embedded in that legislation provisions to take care of people if they can't get to the end of their laboring life, right? So here you are, you're 50 years old, and you can't
1 minute, Vince.
do what you... Thank you. You can't do what you used to do back for many years in either the coal mines or the steel mills or the police officer or the fireman. And how are you going to make it to regular retirement? Well, that's where the disability provision comes in. We're able to show through medical reports and records you can't do what you used to do. It's too late to train you to do something new. So the Social Security Act steps in and provides you an income at the age of 52 to carry you on since you can't be reemployed. So to Francis Perkins, to Franklin Roosevelt, to all of the people who had the wisdom to create the Social Security Act and the New Deal, I tip my hat, and I am glad that I'm a recipient of your wisdom and your hard work at a difficult time in America. So have a great Labor Day. Enjoy the wonderful weather of Western Pennsylvania. This is Vince Quatrini from the Quatrini Law Group saying, have a good day again. I'll see you later. Bye now.
All right, and that you've been listening to Vince Quatrini of the Quatrini Law Group, an office on East Main Street in Uniontown. They also have an office in Somerset as well as Greensburg, and you can join them on the first and third Monday of each month at 11:25 for the Quatrini Law Group. Their phone number is 888-534-6016. Again, 888-534-6016. And again, their next program will be on the third Monday here in September at 11:25. That'll be September 15th. It is 72 and mostly sunny on this Labor Day Monday. Our high will be 77 for this afternoon with mostly sunny skies. News coming up here at the top of the hour. You're listening to WMBS Uniontown, and it is 12 o'clock.
This is CBS News on the Hour.